Alright, taking a look at the trading day from Friday. Starting off with AMD. If we look at the bigger picture, we see this consolidation here. The zone marked out at 142 was a zone that held the prior day. My zone was marked out lower. It never got to that point. However, there was another trader who mentioned 142 being a good bounce spot. They were totally right. Bounced into that supply zone up above, and then coming into today, or on Friday I should say, as soon as the market opened, I noticed that you had this consolidation and then it dropped down into this zone, and even though it dropped below pre-market low and VWAP, you can tell that it didn't hold, so it started to get wicky on the bottom. The volume was holding steady on that hold, and then you see this slight increase, obviously, with this jump. Now, I'm not looking to get in necessarily here, which could have been fine. It's a little tricky with these kind of confirmation entries, but I like to try to get it before, not necessarily. I hate anticipating, I get it, but I want to be able to get a good chunk of that whole move at the beginning as well. So notice, hey, wick holds, reclaims low, pre-market low in this demand zone. So I went long, and as it started to chop, I was a little too hesitant, and really it was, you had a support, a reclaim, a retest, holding VWAP, holding the zone up into pre-market high, saw some rejection there, all the way up into the supply zone, and as you can tell, even further. So I think that this was a trade that was a good entry. I was just a little impatient. I should have let it cook a little bit, and I got out way too soon. But something to think about for next time. The confirmation was slightly there with that increase in volume, and then on the consolidation of the retest, you see the lowering volume without lowering price necessarily, and then another confirmation of a volume increase. We did start to see some RSI play here. Another thing I'd like to point out is you have this low of day, and then obviously this RSI low of day. Okay, but we don't necessarily have an RSI convergence because it wasn't a newer low of day with a higher RSI. It's really just one extreme and then takes off. So something to pay attention to there. Be careful if you're trying that RSI convergence. But that's it for AMD. ARM, checking out ARM. Had relatively different zones from the day before. The prior day, that 20-day moving average did come into effect, as we can tell, with that break and retest below this zone. That could have been a nice scalp the day before, but coming into today, we had this zone here. It somewhat matched up with that zone from the previous day, but the market didn't quite get down that low. So it was a level from before, but here you can see that it totally drops below pre-market low, yesterday's low, taps this demand zone, but without hesitation you see this massive bottoming wick back above VWAP. It holds, and then what we see is a reclaim of pre-market low, goes above the 20-day, creates new highs on the day, and then looks like it's breaking and retesting the zone, only to fail. I didn't take this trade, but could have been a potential bounce, but I don't love playing that 5-minute. And with that kind of a move already regained, 144.28 back to 146, a $2 or more move. mean, that's a chunk of the move missed out on. And yeah, I guess 147 to, gosh, 150, 151 is still a good chunk, but the spreads on ARM have been really crappy lately. So, don't know that I would have taken this one. That would have been a FOMO for me if I would have saw that and I had to get in. Don't want to do that. Next play, hopefully these zones pop up here. Let's switch this to zones. There we go. NVIDIA consolidation for a couple days. Obviously a break and a retest. Consolidation. The zones that I had marked out, I saw went into the previous day's highs just above the 2 day ago's highs. And then here you see this zone marked out. Yesterday's lows held there. You saw the day before it was consolidating there or holding there, finding support. So going into Friday, I noticed that NVIDIA had a really strong move, and you know, it's when it's going into a supply zone, I do have to wait. You know, I have to wait and see, well, what's going to happen? You know, is it going to reject this zone? Because it hadn't quite broken above the zone, but when it retested those previous day highs, bounced off VWAP. It was way above pre-market high. I didn't know if it was going to come back down. I think, if I remember correctly, I took an entry in this consolidation, almost in anticipation of the break and retest. I noticed the contracts for 167.50 were $20 a piece at the money. I took those into the spike. I think I sold some, retested, and as it started climbing, I started taking. Final profit was up in or close to the 167.50, 167 area. Good thing I took it off because, as we can tell, zoom in here, we have obviously a break and support retest, but if we take a trend line and we mark out our RSI, we can still see high of day here at this climax, retest, new high of day, but lowering RSI slightly, still in the very overbought field. But even then again, we get just a slightly new high of day. We get a lower RSI, okay, but a higher high slightly. A second confirmation of an RSI divergence. Could have been a great put scalp here. As we can see, it tops out at 167.88. I mean, that puppy goes as low as 164.82, so that's a $3 move to the downside. Obviously, this chop would have eaten up the premium for a Friday on 0 DTEs. Yeah, holds VWAP. I maybe if I would have seen this, I would have gotten out. If it comes down to the zone, maybe. But again, this right here is a killer. Never fun. I mean, if it's at the money, we're probably good, probably decent, but just need to be careful. Next one, Palantir. This one was interesting. First and foremost, I mean, it took right off, and Palantir has been, it's felt relatively strong for quite some time. Obviously here you had a major dip, but found support, okay, in this area, bounced, came here, chopped around, bounced again, found support. This is the pre-market low. We have the high of day marked out. This zone was produced based upon some prior day levels, and prior to that consolidation. So anyway, going into this, took off right away, looked pretty bullish, pretty strong. At first, when it took off like this and broke this zone with strength, obviously the opening candle's always got a lot of volume. Consolidated, looks reversal-esque, but then I saw that it held pre-market high, VWAP, demand zone, went long, came up into this. I think I ended up just cutting it because I noticed this wick into the supply zone. Just start chopping around. So the one thing I noticed as well is boop boop, increase there. RSI, decrease there. That's a divergence. I flipped the script, took puts, came down, found support off of VWAP, looked a little sketchy here, coming back into supply, but it held. I think I had an appointment, so I actually had an alert set for, I think down here somewhere, just to get through this zone and see how low it would go. I could have paid attention to this one a little bit better. It did play out. I mean, to go from 144 to 142 could have been a nice scalp for a little profit, maybe 50%, maybe higher, 70, 75. But yeah, so moving on from there, QQQ. I did not take anything with the Qs. However, I'll say the Qs, similar to SPY, had a failed breakdown into this supply zone, demand zone. So broke, it tried to reclaim yesterday's lows, faked out, went down, didn't quite get to pre-market low, bounced off the support, reclaimed VWAP, reclaimed yesterday's lows, up into the zone. This could have been a nice $3 move. That could have been 100%er on a 0 DTE. Going up into that supply zone. But the same thing with Qs. I mean, very similar. You saw this fake breakout, breakdown, failed breakdown, reclaim of yesterday's low, bounce off the zone, climbed up into the supply zone. But then again, as you can see, top. Want to take a guess at what it's doing Sunday night here at 9:22 at night? Sure enough, gap down just a little bit. I mean, it could hold this zone here. Going into tonight, into tomorrow for a reclaim. We'll just have to see how it all kind of plays out. Could even extend this zone one more day or 2 more days. What is today? The 13th, 14th. Bam. There we go. Could even possibly extend this zone just to see if it breaks out of that consolidation range. And then that's it. Just trying to take a look at recaps. Obviously, this is hindsight, not financial advice. So just trying to get better at playing zones and levels. Price action, volume analysis. What are the probabilities? You know, is it high? Is it low? Should I take it? Should I not? What's my risk management? Gotta stick to it. It's something I'm practicing. Sticking to my risk management. Not going outside of that. Just putting on the trade, letting it play out. If it fails, there's always another one. I can't get too attached to these trades. I'm learning detachment. Just here recording as a trade analysis or reflection. Just trying to get better. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed. Peace.